Hey everyone, in today's video, I'm going to be showing you the process of me updating my aquascape in my aquarium using some of the new plants that I bought last week and my new aquascaping toolkit. This is what my tank currently looks like now. Of course, it does look nice, but it just has anubias and java fern, and I wanted to add a little bit more. To start off, I'm going ahead and removing some of my duckweed. I have a lot of it, so a lot of it had to come out. Then I'm going ahead and removing some of the water. I will not be showing the full cleaning process simply because I do have a lot of cleaning videos on my channel already. Now I'm going ahead and trimming some of the yellow or brown leaves off of my plants. Due to the nature of my plants, I don't have to trim any down because they don't get too tall, but I do have to remove some unsightly leaves every now and then. I removed about 1 or 2 from each plant, and that was it. Now I'm going ahead and removing some of my wood pieces that I'm either going to glue some plants to or just switch up. This one here has a lot of java fern attached to it already. Next, I'm taking my planted substrate and I'm doing a little bit of a top-up. All of my plants currently are ones that were planted above the substrate, so I didn't have a lot of it, but the ones I bought, I do have to plant the roots, so I'm just topping it up a little bit to ensure that there's enough for them. I just washed it off to get rid of the excess dust on there. It's very important because it's a super dusty substrate, and then I added it into my aquarium. I made sure I added it evenly so it wasn't super high in some places and not in the other, even if I knew I wasn't going to be planting my plants there. Now, my favorite part is gluing my plants to the wood that I have. The plant glue that I personally use is this Flourish Glue by Seachem. I find it works really good, so I'm gonna keep using it. The first plant that I'm gluing is this baby leaf here. I'm just popping it out of the basket and removing the mineral wool, and then I'm adding the glue to this piece of spiderwood here. Then I'm just pressing the plant into the glue and holding it for a few seconds until it dries. I added a second piece onto this wood as well. Now I'm going back to that big piece I pulled out that had a lot of java fern, and I'm separating the roots from a piece that had become unattached. I'm also trimming some roots. This won't harm the plant, it might just slow its growth a little bit, which isn't a problem for me. And then I'm prepping my next plant, which is an anubias nana petite. Then I add some glue to this piece of spiderwood and press in the anubias like so. Here I'm doing a little tug just to make sure it's dry before I add it back into my tank. And I cap up the glue because we are done with it today. Before I plant, of course, I go ahead and add the wood back into my tank. I start off with this large piece because it's going to take up the most amount of room, and I bury it into the substrate a little bit to hold it down. And then I go with this one, which does require a little bit more pushing as it has never been in a tank before. This is what it looks like so far with my foreground plants before I add all of the tall ones. One thing I did forget is to add in my moss ball right in the front here. None of my tanks are complete without my moss ball. Now we're getting into the background plants. This process is exactly the same when it comes to preparing the plants. The mineral wool process is a little bit more tedious because there is a lot more root structure on these ones. This vallisneria actually had 3 plants connected by a runner. Now I'm taking one of my flat aquascaping tools and I'm pre-digging little holes for the plants to go into. Just makes planting a little bit easier. This one actually has a plant weight on it, but most of them don't, and when they don't, having deeper holes makes it easier for them to stay in the substrate. For this, I've used both the straight and angled tweezers to plant the plants into the substrate, just kind of press them down a little bit, and then brush some substrate on top of the roots. This plant here, it's kind of on a weird angle. It was broken off. I'm not sure how well it's going to do, but I figured I'd give it a shot and plant it anyway. Now, I am cutting one of the runners for the vallisneria because I just don't have enough room for them all together and I want to spread them out a little bit more. As you can see, this one I'm adding more in the back and this one is going on the complete other side. I bury one last plant and then all of my plants are now planted. The next step I'm doing is just tidying up some of the substrate that ended up everywhere. I'm just using this old toothbrush that I use for cleaning my tanks and scrubbing ornaments and stuff, and I'm just brushing off the substrate from my lava rock as well as my mopani driftwood that I have in here. It'll just make everything look so much neater. I'm also taking this tool and smoothing out some of the substrate and also using it to get some that had blown up on the side of my tank. Then I'm just adding a few botanicals. These are my favorites, alder cones, and because I have shrimp in this tank, it is very good for them. Then we're gonna go ahead and top up the tank. I fill up a bucket of water that I make sure is the same temperature as the water that is in my aquarium already, and then I go ahead and add some water conditioner directly to the bucket. After that, I pour the bucket into the back compartment of my tank because I found this is the easiest way to not stir up all of these substrate, and in this case, sandy substrate in new planted tanks, that is essential. Now I'm adding some of my fertilizers for my plants. The first one I'm adding is these root tabs. Basically, you just bury these into the roots and it should help your plants out. I'm planting in the back of my tank because that's where all of my buried plants are. And then I'm taking my liquid fertilizers and I am adding those, as per the instructions on the bottle, into my tank as well. After that, my tank is all ready and I go ahead, put the lid back on and turn back on the lights. This is what my tank looks like now. It is a huge difference from the beginning. I love having different levels of plants, having the foreground ones and the background ones, because I didn't have that before. And then of course I have my beautiful duckweed. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed watching me replant my tank. If you do like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos from me, then make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get notified when I upload. I hope to see you again soon. Bye.